Before we get started, we'd like to thank EMC Bond for sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety. EMC Bond prioritizes personalized service in every aspect of their business. When you partner with them, you'll receive stable, responsive, and timely solutions rooted in strong relationships. To learn more about EMC Bond, their products, services, and personalized approach, visit emcinsurance.com/bond. Now, on to our show.
You're listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk with Kat Shamapande.
Hey everybody, it's Kat Shamapande. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Let's Get Surety. I've got with me today my co-host, Mark McCallum, CEO of NASBP. Hey, Mark.
Hi, Kat. Thanks for inviting me back.
It's always good to have you on. I'm very excited for today's episode.
Special guest.
We've got with us today Robert Coon, Vice President of Surety at Scott Insurance. Thanks for being on, Robert.
Glad to be here.
So, Robert, not everyone out there might know you yet. So to kick us off, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into surety?
So my family's been in the insurance industry for, I think I'm fifth generation. My son is sixth generation. Graduated from LSU in accounting. I had no interest in going into insurance. It's not my favorite topic. It was not what I dreamed of being as a child, but I had the father-son talk, and it was like, I know you really don't like insurance much, but there's this little division that I think you'll enjoy. And if you're interested, and he told me a little bit about it. He was the branch manager for Reliance Insurance in New Orleans at the time. He said, I'll get you an interview. Can't do it here, but we'll send you to Dallas, where my grandfather was.
Yeah.
You stay with them. You can go interview there. And so I did. I went up there, and my grandfather got me an interview with Fireman's Fund. Long story short, started with Fireman's Fund in 83, and 42 years later, here I am.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
I mean, that's really interesting. So do you credit the direction towards surety because your father knew you and your skill sets?
I think so, yeah. Because
Okay.
I was always a little geeky, a little intellectual, a little bit analytical. And it may say something that my favorite accounting courses at LSU were IRS tax regulations, that kind of stuff. So I think that he saw that and knew about surety and knew what it was. So he pointed me in that direction. And again, it's been good. I can't imagine of doing anything else.
You were lucky you got that guidance so early on.
Yep. From somebody who knew better than I did. So.
Yeah.
But even though you might like a good IRS tax code provision, and then that accounting training, I'm sure came in very helpful. But there's that other side, right? So he must have known you connected, that you liked relationships, things like that.
I don't think it would surprise too many people to know that I'm an introvert. So, I don't think he ever saw me. And I never saw me as an agent and a producer, because I do like more the analytical side and that kind of stuff. I would say I'm not a particularly good salesperson, but I can connect with people, and I do have that analytical. So I do write some more complex and interesting type of business than the normal notary bond and that kind of stuff.
It's kind of a testament to the industry that there's maybe a place for everybody. Not everybody has the absolute same skill sets, but if you have the basic fundamentals, that there are paths for you, maybe.
There is absolutely a path for everybody. I mean, it's even as I've matured as a producer, as I've been in this career for a long time, it's been interesting to see the folks that I've mentored. They're different from me, and they have a different skill set, and they go different directions. And there's a lot in it. And you see people that come from the underwriting side like I did, and then come over to the agency, and they last a little while, and then they go back.
Yeah.
But I think when they go back as a better underwriter. They find out that it's not for them, but they understand a lot better what the agents go through. I mean, I had no clue. Knew the process.
Yeah.
But the day-to-day life of an agent is so much different from an underwriter.
So you said you started out on the company side, and then you never really saw yourself as a producer. How did you end up making that switch?
So in the mid 90s or so, I had the opportunity to work on several large contractors, international contractors, and it was fascinating work for me. It was really very interesting. And through that, Fireman's Fund at the time was expanding. They were looking at doing some global, taking Surety global, building out the network in Europe and South America and around the world. And I had accepted a position in our international division and home office in Marin, California. And so my wife and I, she told her employer she was leaving. We were put the house on the market, started the house hunt and that kind of stuff. And during that time, our parent company, some things happened and they kind of slammed the brakes on that expansion plan with Surety and such. And because our house hadn't sold, we kind of agreed we're just going to reset, leave our things where they were and go from there, which was traumatic at the time, but it also made me kind of realize I was bored. My boss at the time was only about 5 years older than I was. He wasn't going anywhere. He liked the Greensboro area and that type of stuff.
There's no room for growth.
There was no room for growth. I really didn't see what the next step was going to be.
Yeah.
So I said, let me go get my agent's license. I don't see me doing that, but that's something that might open some opportunities and see where it would go. And in that process, I ended up meeting the claims adjuster or loss control specialist, I guess, from Scott. And they had Scott at the time it's based in Lynchburg, had 3 other offices in Virginia, and then had a Greensboro office. And they had a Surety guy that was looking at retiring and they needed somebody to replace him. And so he made the connection for me and we had some conversations. Fireman's Fund decided to close the Greensboro office and wanted me to move to Atlanta. And I had absolutely no interest in going to Atlanta. So we kind of accelerated the program and ended up joining Scott and never have looked back. It's been a great experience. I have to really give Scott a lot of kudos for giving me the space and support to develop as a producer.
Yeah.
And it's been a great career. It's been an absolutely great career.
I mean, that's really interesting
It is.
in a sense. So you were a reluctant person going over the other side.
I would say
and
somebody
you stuck,
better
right?
than and more knowledgeable than me kind of forced my hand to go where he wanted me to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so maybe elaborate a little bit more about, you were saying how Scott gave you the space and the support. So particularly when you were a quote young producer, what does that look like? What was meaningful to you to keep you feeling like the agent's path was the right path for you?
Basically, they were very supportive. Anything I wanted, anything I needed, they were there. They would say, here it is. Tell us what you want, what you need to grow. They weren't expecting that a typewriter was the first thing I would need to buy, but that was it. So
Do you still need that?
maybe
Maybe that's another podcast.
but that may be another podcast. But they were just very supportive. They would let me do whatever they needed. They were there to help me. The gentleman by the name of Bill Sansuisi was the gentleman that retired. He had built a pretty good program unit as far as surety bonds. And that was his first love. He was a commercial underwriter eventually. So commercial was his first love. I was kind of focused on contract. So when he retired, he basically asked me to take over the stuff he didn't like, which was the contract stuff.
Right.
He kept the commercial stuff as a consultant for several years, but he was there as a resource.
Okay. So would you characterize him as a mentor perhaps, or
Actually, it was a resource.
Okay.
But this is what led me to the NASBP. As an underwriter, I was aware of the NASBP. I never went to a function. I was never that level of an underwriter.
Yeah.
But I was aware of it. And while Bill was there, I was really a sole practitioner because contract wasn't his first love, and it wasn't his thing. And so I joined an NASBP early on because I knew it was an important organization, but I didn't really know what it was about.
Yeah.
And Bill was supportive. He would help me where he was, but his first love was really the commercial side of the house, and I was focusing on contract. So I ended up going, I think it was in 2005 to the regional in Baltimore.
Okay.
And it's like, all right, let me figure out what's going on. I know it's a lot of the guys I always see, and it's competition, so to speak, but let me see what it's about.
Yeah.
And I had at that point, like 2 or 3 prospect accounts that I was struggling with. They had some hair on it. I just wasn't really I had some ideas of how to address it, but wasn't really sure.
Right.
By the end of that weekend in Baltimore, I had all 3 accounts written because it was sitting down in the lobby or in the bar or over lunch or whatever, talking with some of the underwriters and some of their the mid-level managers. But they said, well, yeah, we might be able to work it like this and that kind of stuff. So there was some feedback, but they were essentially done. And it was like, I'm all in. This is it. I've got to go out there. And if this is what I need to do, is meet all these people so they understand where I'm coming from. And I get a better sense of what they're looking for. I've come to just about every NASBP event since.
So it sounds like, luckily, at an early meeting, you found the value very quickly. In being there.
Yes.
But it's one thing to be there in attendance. It's another thing to want to really participate in the life of the association and maybe even seek leadership. So tell us about that path.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to that first typewriter. So, so many things to do. And again, I am not a tech person by any means, but I have an affinity to do things faster and easier and better if we can. And the bane of my existence was the work in progress schedule. Because again, I had some large international accounts when I was an underwriter.
Yeah.
And I will never forget, we'd get the quarterly work in progress schedule. It would have 500 to 600 jobs on it. It would take me about a day and a half to analyze it because this was paper. It was before Excel.
Yeah.
And then another day and a half to find all my mistakes because it wouldn't balance, it wouldn't zero through. So when I heard about the Automation and Technology Committee, I was like, all right, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I joined the Automation and Technology Committee and got involved in that, and it made a lot of sense. And we got to work with it. And I think Nick came in as chair.
Nick Newton
came in as chair not long after I initially joined, and we got along real well. And then he needed to move on and roped me into working that, and I've been cleaning up his messes ever since.
Kind of got sucked in.
Got us sucked in, but it's been good because it's when you get active in the committees and you get active in some of the things, you meet a broader range of people that have all done what you're doing, and have all been in my spot, understood what's happening. And it may be from California or Texas or region that I'm not necessarily competing in, right? And they're willing to help. They're willing to help. This is what you're doing. This is how you do it. And a good talk to this surety or that surety. They did a good job for me on that similar type of deal.
Yeah.
And because it's meeting the other people and getting to know what they want and what they're looking for, and then knowing what I have and what I'm looking for, where we make those connections and become successful.
Wow.
And you joined Automation and Technology because you were having trouble with the whip. Did the committee help you solve your issues?
Well, we keep working on it. So we did a lot I think we came up with the original toolkit, and there's been several iterations of it, and it continues to migrate. We got
and tell us what the toolkit is.
Toolkit is the forms that the surety industry uses kind of across the board. So it's a general
process forms.
It's a standardized work in progress. It's a standardized contractor questionnaire. It's like a standardized commercial questionnaire. Just a lot of stuff that we all need as an industry. We set it up so it could be co-branded, NASBP and the local agent. And we set it up. We were trying to get away from paper.
Right.
So we set it up as digital form so it could go fill in and it'd calculate out a lot of the information that needed to be calculated out, like in the WIP. So you'd get the contract and billings and bill cost today, cost to compute. They'd fill in some of the rest of those numbers
Right.
through an Excel spreadsheet. And then we kind of looked a way to improve that. And we got involved with XBRL. So I've been working on XBRL for probably 15 or 20 years.
And XBRL is
Besides a really fast moving project.
Yes, it is not the fastest moving project, but it is a machine readable language so that you can transfer information. And it's been interesting because we're finally getting traction. You've got some major accounting software producers that are incorporating it into their product now that should help.
right.
The SBA has been very supportive. They have set up portals where we can digest the work in progress from their clients in XBRL.
Wow.
And it's interesting because I've had people make comments, well, OCR does a good job. AI is going to put it out, replace it. And it's like, no, XBRL is the language that gives AI credibility. OCR, optical character recognition, can read some of these reports, but it's not infallible. So it'll make mistakes, that type of stuff.
Right.
With XBRL, it's accurate, it's transferable, and it's a common platform. And the frustrating thing, I guess, to me is that we've pushed the technology, we've pushed the language, and I think I still have a lot of faith in it, and there's a lot of opportunity there. And we focused on the WIP because that was the part of XBRL that was not developed. So we helped them develop the language and how to incorporate it into the technology. But it can be all financial information. Any SEC reporting company has to provide their information in an XBRL format. Any bank in the US has to report it in XBRL format. Many countries require all their financial statements in XBRL format. So it's a great technology. And what it does for AI is AI needs that machine. It's a machine. It needs to have a machine readable information.
I would think it's more accurate.
It is much more accurate, and it gives it the leverage to really succeed. So how we're affected by AI and that type of stuff, I think it's going to happen. How it happens and when it happens, it's going to be interesting. We're all kind of struggling with how it applies and how we should use it and how we shouldn't be using it. But for it to be useful, it has to have information it can rely on and be accurate.
Yeah.
And that's a machine readable language, XBRL.
It kind of sounds like technology is a passion, but I just want to point out
efficiency is a passion.
Yeah, efficiency.
Yeah.
Well,
however we get there.
However we get there.
I love to hear the story. It's a great example of how your NASBP involvement allowed you to help find solutions for your community, for the producer community, like real world issues. And this was a forum where you got to actually address those and make a difference.
Right. And it has been a long slog. I'm actually very excited at what we're looking at on the blockchain and risk stream initiative to digitize bonds, because I will never forget one of my largest contractors in the middle of COVID. They were trying to get bonds where they needed to be, and it's like, can't we do this digitally?
Yeah.
It says we can issue a PDF, which is basically a picture of paper, but it's up to your obligee whether they'll accept it. And if they won't accept it, there's not much we can do with it. With the digital, what this risk stream initiative and Surety X, it's verifiable. It's hard to, I won't say anything that it's impossible to issue fraudulently or alter fraudulently. But it's very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I thought was fascinating that I believe it was the 90s. The concept of blockchain was originally developed as a digital notary. So instead of having the notary seal and doing that verification,
Yeah.
You could do it digitally through the blockchain. And it was 10 or 15 years that Bitcoin kind of developed off of the blockchain. And that's where we are today. So most people tie blockchain
To Bitcoin.
and digital
But
currencies.
But it started with the
it
notaries.
started as a notary concept,
right.
which marries very well with surety bonds.
Yeah.
So it's really a different technology. You're applying that technology in a new context. But what's the end game here? You talked about blockchain and Restream. Restream, I think, is it a not-for-profit?
Restream is actually an arm of the Institute. Most everybody's familiar with the CPCU designation.
Yep.
They designed it. They do a lot of research for the insurance industry and are trying to find initiatives and how to use blockchain for the benefit of the industry, how to use AI for the benefit of the industry. And we were able to make that connection. And it's interesting because it's a lot of the same connections that we developed through XBRL. And to see how can we do this? How can we make it so it's universal? So it's not just limited to this type of bond or that type of bond, that every surety can rely on this technology for any, and the obligees, most importantly, the obligees.
Yeah.
Whether they're a contractor or an owner or a government entity, they can look at this, they can manage it. I mean, I won't call it a mistake, but it wasn't the wisest thing I've ever done, in that there was a local municipality that will call me periodically. They have a subdivision bond that the work's been finished. So their SOP is to return that to the issuer, and they'll get it, and the project will finish, and they can't find the developer anymore, and they don't know where the surety is. So they'll call me and say, send this to me. And they ask, how's a good way to manage this? And well, we're starting to work on a way to do this digitally. And ever since I've told that to them, about every year to 6 months, well, is it ready yet? Is it ready yet?
They're ready.
Talking about blockchain.
Yeah.
They want to be able to have a solid, easy way to manage their bonds and their guarantees, where they know where to go if they need to claim it, and they need to know where they go to say, we're done, we're good, see you later.
Sounds like you see a desire out there, not just within the surety community, but the stakeholders, to move towards a digital environment.
Everybody wants efficiency.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's not a people issue in the sense that they want to get rid of people. It's a people issue in that they can't find the people to do all the work they need. So they need their people to give their people the tools to be efficient, be faster, not get bogged down to, where is the surety office? Who do we send this to?
So that's how you got into the leadership with A&T committee and got involved with that. How did that transition into a larger leadership role with NASBP?
Mostly, I guess, this sucker tattoo across my forehead. No, it's interesting. One of the things I learned a long time ago and believe in is that leadership needs to rotate.
Yeah.
Because it needs to rotate, just because after a while you get stale in that position and you kind of end up doing the same thing over and over and over again. So after a few years leading A&T, I felt I needed to move on and do something different. I'm still very passionate about it, what the Automation and Technology Committee is doing, and it's done. I'm very excited about it. I keep my finger on the pulse, but it was, time to get a little bit new leadership in there, try and do something different.
Yeah.
And I joined I was on the international committee. I was on the government relations committee and others. And I think everybody in Surety always has an affinity to the financial things. So I kind of stepped onto the finance committee and started working there, and ended up they needed the leadership there. So I stepped in there and didn't screw up too bad. Our balance sheet stayed fairly well. And that, like we were talking earlier, everybody has different strengths and affinities.
Yeah.
But that introduced me to a lot of different other people that weren't so technology focused, and just other leaders. And I think just working with that, I think people saw some value in what I was doing and my commitment to the association, and asked me if I'd be willing to sit in the chair. So It was an intimidating request, but it also was kind of juiced me up, and I got excited about seeing what I could do to support the association that had really, I don't think I would be where I am today as a producer. Forget where I am with NASBP.
Yeah.
I do not think I could be where I am as a producer without the NASBP.
Wow. That's great to
Yeah,
hear.
it is.
I'd like to think that if NASBP was ever to be a contractor, we can thank you and many other great finance committee chair leaders
Yeah.
that we probably qualify for a bond.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I would hope so too. So now you are assuming the mantle of higher leadership. And could you tell us, is there a theme that will go with your presidency?
My first mid-year meeting after getting into the chairs was at the Broadmoor, and there was an issue on the table that was really got people heated, and there was some tension in the room and loud voices and that kind of stuff. And I'll never forget that Chris Coman stood up and kind of said, look, folks, we need to remember that despite all our differences, our goal is to build a better association. And that just clicked, because building better is what NASBP does. We have, through our schools, our blogs, our vlogs, our webinars, we build better agents. We build better underwriters. We build better clients. We, as our agents, we're out there trying to help our clients become better, because every underwriter out there wants the best in class of that business. And if we can help them be that, it's a better client. It's an easier client to handle. So through legislation and trying to be sure we protect the Miller Act, we protect the little Miller Acts, we get new opportunities like the bead bond. We're trying to build a better industry, better agents, better underwriters. And it just, my other exec officers have talked, we've talked about themes and how they came up and that kind of stuff. And I had mine, Chris basically laid mine in my lap, the first real thing I had as an officer. So it was pretty cool.
Made it easy to choose.
Very easy to choose.
Well, Robert, it has been great having you on and getting to learn more about you and how you got into Surety. And I am looking forward to the next year of building better with you.
You've been listening to Let's Get Surety, brought to you by the National Association of Surety Bond Producers. For more information about the NASBP and its members, visit nasbp.org.
Before we go, we just wanted to thank EMC Bond again for their generous support in sponsoring this episode of Let's Get Surety. EMC Bond prioritizes personalized service in every aspect of their business. When you partner with them, you'll receive stable, responsive, and timely solutions rooted in strong relationships. To learn more about EMC Bond, their products, services, and personalized approach, visit emcinsurance.com/bond.